Is everyone ready here? You guys all good for me to kickstart things? Yeah, I invite everybody to come grab a seat if you're joining us here today. My name is Sean Fraser. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. I'm the Member of Parliament for Central Nova, which happens to include the Halifax Stanfield International Airport. And I'm also here today in my capacity as Canada's Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Before I get too far, I want to give a special thanks to our guests from Air Canada and the Shapiro Foundation for being here today and for their role in an integral partnership that we'll share news of with you shortly. I also want to give a huge thank you to our hosts here at the airport. It's nice to have the occasion to come by again after a previous and important announcement for the airport. But this is as much about the importance that the airport can give back to us as a community. And I'm very grateful, not just for hosting us here today, but for the work that you do in Nova Scotia and for Canada. It's so greatly appreciated. Of course, my colleagues, Darren Fisher, Jaime Batiste, and Lena Metlaj-Diab. So great to see all of you here today. Thank you for joining for an announcement that I know is very important to all of you, given our conversations about the need to continue to do more to support Ukrainians who are fleeing this unjust and unnecessary war of aggression. Very pleased to be here with all of you. I want to give the special thank you to Sarah. It's Sarah Wiseman, who I knew growing up as Sarah McIntosh, who's the Canada Director at the Shapiro Foundation, and David Rio, Vice President, Government and Community Relations with Air Canada. Thank you for both of you to being here today. Look, it's been now more than a month and a half that we've been witnessing the horrific acts of violence conducted by Putin's regime with this latest invasion into Ukraine. I can't help but think the values that have helped deliver peace and prosperity to Canada for my entire life, and in fact going back 80 years now since the end of the Second World War, those values that underpin the international legal order that we know today include the respect of territorial integrity, respect of sovereignty of independent nations, the need to uphold the right of peoples to self-determination, the very notion that a person should have a say in who makes decisions that impact the quality of life that they get to enjoy. Those values are all under attack with this war of aggression that's been launched by Vladimir Putin. And it's very important to me that Canada does its part to uphold these values when they're under attack, not just at home, but on the territory of one of our sovereign allies, in this case, Ukraine. Dozens of communities and cities of all sizes have been destroyed. Ukrainians have mounted an incredibly brave defense of their homeland. And that incredible defiance and fight for sovereignty continues. And I want to communicate to Ukrainian Canadians who may be paying attention that Canada will be there with you every step of the way. Le Canada continue de soutenir les peuples ukrainiens qui défendent son pays contre cette attaque. Le Canada a réagi rapidement et Immigration, Réfugiés et Citoyenneté Canada a pris plusieurs mesures pour soutenir les Ukrainiens. Working with our partners, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that Ukrainians are supported over the course of their stay in Canada once they arrive. Now, there's been a number of measures that we've put in place to date. We started planning for the potential influx of Ukrainians who would be seeking safe haven in Canada on January 19th, when we established an internal task force to IRCC. We began by deploying certain elements of an operational readiness effort, whether it was putting biometric kits or human resources in key locations to the west of Ukraine for those who may be fleeing to have expedited access to immigration officials. We extended measures that allowed people who were already, Ukrainians I should say, who were already in Canada on a temporary basis to extend their stay and made them eligible for work permits or study permits, as the case may be. For people who already had an application in the inventory of cases within our department, we started prioritizing them on an expedited basis. But we also knew we had to do more to get people here more quickly who would be fleeing this horrifying war. That's why we launched in mid-March the Canada-Ukraine Authorization for Emergency Travel. This is an expedited pathway for Ukrainians who are fleeing this war to come to Canada. What we did was built a new and innovative system around the existing visitor regime because we knew it had the capacity to process large numbers of people that would allow us to respond in real time to a conflict where there was a unique and distinguishing feature in that after it's safe to return home, those seeking temporary protection would want to do so. With the advent of this new emergency program, we've now seen that the process is holding up very well. I'm pleased to share that although it launched March 17th, it had a 2-week processing period to get people approved to come to Canada, which means we've only been processing people for approvals over the last 3 weeks or so. And already there are now more than 54,000 Ukrainians who have been approved to come to Canada under this particular program. This expedited pathway to Canada for Ukrainians will provide 3-year stays for those who need it, and newcomers will benefit from access to a work permit in hand on arrival should they wish to apply for one. Their children are going to be able to go to school and immediately have access to work and study opportunities. And even though most Ukrainians are arriving as temporary residents, we announced recently that we would be expanding settlement support that's typically reserved for permanent residents to Ukrainians who are fleeing this war, in recognition of the special circumstances that make them particularly vulnerable. This means that Ukrainians who are coming to Canada are going to have access to key services to help them settle into their communities. This will include things like language training, information about life in their new community, information about how to search for a job or to sign up for a bank account, or in some instances, simple things about knowing how to enroll your child in soccer or to ride the bus if you have public transit in your community. Pour ceci, nous allons compter sur plus de 550 agences de services d'établissement à travers le Canada qui se mobilisent pour jouer un rôle clé dans le soutien des Ukrainiens après leur arrivée. Additionally, a couple of weeks ago, the Prime Minister co-hosted the Stand Up for Ukraine event alongside the President of the European Union, and he announced additional supports for Ukrainians who were fleeing this illegal war launched by Vladimir Putin. Those arriving under the Canada-Ukraine authorization for emergency travel will benefit from new supports, including 6 weeks of income supports, including 2 weeks of stay in hotel accommodations, and to make sure that these benefits are in place to make sure that they can get off on the right foot once they arrive. We've also established a partnership with the Red Cross to provide reception services to Ukrainians as they arrive. This includes on-site first aid at the airport where individuals and families first arrive. It includes people who have particular mental health expertise. It includes people who have information about the local job market, information on how to apply for a social insurance number. We've put these measures in place to make sure that we don't just make it easier for Ukrainians to get here, but make it easier for them to succeed once they arrive. Now, over the past few months, I've heard time and time again from Canadians that they want to help Ukrainians in any way that they can because they believe that the circumstances they're facing are unjust. Without a second thought, communities have already done so much to welcome those fleeing Putin's war. People are offering their homes, their food, their time, their energy. This is who we are as Canadians, and it's part of a long and proud tradition that we've established of helping those in need. And while we as a government continue to do everything we can to support Ukrainians before and after they arrive in Canada, there's been an immense showing of goodwill from Canadians across the country who simply want to do their part to contribute to something they believe is the right thing. And by tapping into this goodwill, we can establish partnerships that build on the supports that I've already shared details of for Ukrainians who arrive in Canada. I do want to say that we have made a decision that the Prime Minister announced a few weeks ago to launch certain chartered flights for Ukrainians who are seeking to come to Canada. But there's a really unique factor with respect to this crisis that communicated to us that chartered flights would not be the only solution. We realize in a typical refugee resettlement initiative that we have large populations of people who are concentrated in certain areas. In some instances, it's literally people who are in a refugee camp. I can think of the Syrian effort with those who've come to Canada through Jordan or Lebanon, for example, where people were being managed through a centrally run refugee resettlement initiative by the UNHCR, where people had access to an airstrip and were waiting for an airplane to arrive to cart them back to their country of destination, in our case, of course, Canada. There's something unique with the Ukrainian crisis. Those who fled westerly have not been in refugee camps for several years. They're moving through Europe fairly freely and stopping wherever they can first find a safe place to rest their head. While this may be a positive thing from a human protection point of view, it makes the logistics of having people come to Canada that much more challenging when you talk about chartered flights. The solution will involve a mix of chartered and commercial flights. And today, our guests are going to be sharing details about a new Ukraine to Canada travel fund, an initiative with Miles for Migrants, the Shapiro Foundation, and Air Canada that's going to help many, many Ukrainians find safe haven here. Aujourd'hui, nous annonçons les fonds de voyage ukrainien Canada, une initiative avec Miles for Migrants, la Fondation Shapiro et Air Canada qui aidera des milliers d'Ukrainiens à venir au Canada. Before I pass it over to David and Sarah to share details, who will speak more about this extraordinary initiative, I want to take the opportunity to launch a call for action with the Canadian business community, who I've been hearing so much generosity from NGOs who are seeking to do more to support Ukrainians, to provinces and territories who continue to step up in the spirit of the Team Canada approach that I've seen regardless of partisan affiliation, regardless of which level of government. And I want to call on everyday Canadians to continue to find innovative ways to support Ukrainians in their own community. We need to keep bringing people together by encouraging partnerships across all parts of our society and to find ways to continue to do what Canada does better than any other country in the world. That's helping the most vulnerable in any way that we can. With that, I'm so happy to pass it over to David to share some important details about this exciting initiative. Thank you so much. Merci tout le monde.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre. Thank you. Messieurs et Madame les députés, Moisman, on a aussi Madame Padilla on the line from Miles from Migrant. Alors, au nom d'Air Canada, je suis très heureux d'être ici aujourd'hui pour souligner le lancement de cette importante initiative. En tant que transporteur national de notre pays, nous sommes honorés d'y participer afin de faciliter le voyage des Ukrainiens vers le Canada. On behalf of Air Canada, our country's national global airline, I'm very pleased to be here today. Together with our 30,000 employees, we're humbled to support Ukrainians to travel to Canada, and announcing that we're going to make an aeroplan donation of 100 million points. This donation will give the flexibility of travel on the Star Alliance Global Network, which include travel not only on Air Canada, but on our partner carriers, Lufthansa, LOT Polish Airlines, Swiss, United Airlines, and other carriers, therefore providing a wide range of efficient travel options. We're also pleased to work with the Shapiro Foundation, who will be matching additional Aeroplan contribution, and to continue collaborating with Miles for Migrant, one of our long-standing charitable partners. All of these collective efforts contributes toward the Canadian government goal to enable thousands of Ukrainians to travel to Canada. Notre contribution de 100 millions de points Aeroplan permettra aux Ukrainiens désirant voyager vers le Canada d'avoir accès au réseau d'Air Canada, mais aussi à ceux de nos différents partenaires de Star Alliance, comme Lufthansa, LOT Polish Airlines, Swiss, United Airlines. Je tiens à remercier Miles for Migrant et la Fondation Shapiro pour leur expertise et leur précieuse collaboration dans cette initiative, contribuant ainsi à l'objectif du gouvernement canadien de permettre à des milliers d'Ukrainiens de venir chez nous au Canada. Air Canada is really committed to continue collaborating with partners and other stakeholders to help. Nous sommes chez Air Canada pleinement engagés à continuer de collaborer avec nos partenaires pour aider. Merci, thank you.
Thank you, Minister Fraser and David, and good afternoon, everyone. The Shapiro Foundation is a Boston-based Boston-based family foundation whose philanthropic efforts are focused exclusively on initiatives that benefit refugees and displaced persons around the world. On behalf of the Shapiro Foundation's trustees, Ed and Barbara Shapiro, I want to share that we are honored to be here today, standing in partnership with the Government of Canada, Miles for Migrants, and Air Canada. We recognize that there are many Ukrainians and their families facing unimaginable circumstances who want to travel to Canada, but who have limited means to pay for airfare. We also recognize that there are many, many Canadians across the country who are looking for ways to help. So we are issuing an invitation to Canadians to donate to this collective effort to bring Ukrainians to Canada on no-cost flights. The Shapiro Foundation and its partners share the optimistic goal of seeing at least 10,000 Ukrainians and their family members access these no-cost flights. There are 3 ways that Canadians can contribute to this program. They can donate Aeroplan points directly through Air Canada. They can donate other airline loyalty points directly through our partner, Miles for Migrants, or monetary donations, which will be used towards flight purchases, can be made through the Jewish Foundation of Greater Toronto. As an added incentive to help us reach our goal, the Shapiro Foundation will match donations by Canadians up to the equivalent of a further 50 million Aeroplan points. The Shapiro Foundation recently undertook a similar partnership with Miles for Migrants in the United States, and that resulted in a donation of more than 20,000 flights for Afghans going to the US. We're excited to see what Canadians step forward to do. Canada has long been recognized as a global leader in efforts to create opportunities for displaced individuals. At the Shapiro Foundation, we recognize that Canada's reputation as a leader in this space is due in no small part to the generosity of Canadians who always step forward to welcome the stranger in need. Whether in a personal capacity or as part of a corporate initiative, we invite Canadians to join us in this effort to facilitate the welcome of Ukrainians in need of a safe place to call home here in Canada. Thank you.
Folks, let me just say on behalf of the Government of Canada how grateful we are for your generosity. The combined impact of this, this astounding donation is going to see at least 10,000 Ukrainians receive free transportation to Canada after they've qualified for entry through our special program. This is the kind of generosity that demonstrates that out of a crisis you can sometimes see the very best that humanity has to offer. To see Air Canada and the Shapiro Foundation step up in this way is something I will remain grateful for a very long time. That concludes the formal set of remarks. Of course, we'd be happy to stay and receive whatever questions those who are with us from the media may have. Thank you so much.
So thank you, everyone. Merci tout le monde. I am Natalie Poirier, IRCC Communications Advisor. Nathalie Poirier, co-chair en communication avec IRCC. I will be moderating the questions and answer period today. Je vais modérer la période des questions et réponses aujourd'hui. We will have questions from the room as well as on the phone, and we will start with questions in the room. I will ask that you speak in this mic when you do ask questions from the room. Introduce yourself before you ask the question and to who your question is asked to, and then you will have a follow-up question if you would like. Alors, on va prendre les questions de la salle en premier. Il y a aussi des personnes sur le téléphone à poser des questions. Lorsque vous allez poser votre question ici dans la salle, s'il vous plaît, faites-le dans le microphone ici, introduisez-vous, ainsi que demandez à qui la question vous voulez poser, et puis vous aurez aussi une question de suivi. So we will start the question period now. Anybody in this room have a question? Quelqu'un de cette salle aurait une question?
Hi, my name's Pat Healy from the Laker News. This question is for Minister Fraser. What is the update with the health and education funding for folks arriving from Ukraine? There are a couple families in East Hants who have Ukrainian refugees arriving, and they have been told that they're going to have to pay for the education and health themselves. Will the Government of Canada be helping to cover any of these expenses?
Thanks very much, Pat, for the question, and I appreciate it. This is one of the things that we've been working on with our provincial and territorial partners from the very beginning. So the federal government's piece that we've made agreements to cover already include 6 weeks of income support, include 2 weeks of temporary hotel stay, include access to certain charters. Of course, this private donation coming today is supplementary to that. We've also extended settlement supports that include the kind of measures I outlined in my remarks and the partnership with the Red Cross. When we've been having conversations with our provincial and territorial partners, a large focus is what can we do to have those other levels of government extend health and education services. The conversations, without exception, have been going very, very well. Not necessarily every province has nailed down their approach to date, but we have seen quite a few provincial and territorial entities step up and say, yes, these services will be covered. We're going to continue to work with a national table we've set up to have regular weekly conversations with provincial and territorial partners, with the settlement sector and with the federal government, to figure out what we can do to ensure that everyone who arrives has access to these services. So with respect to the very specific situation on health and education services for those arriving in Nova Scotia, we still have to have continued conversations with the provincial government here, but I'm sure that they would be happy to respond to those specific questions on those two areas of provincial authority.
Do you have a follow-up question?
What does it mean to see the support here today with this, announcement?
I feel, I really appreciate that question. I feel very lucky. I feel very lucky to be Canadian. I've seen over the course of my time in this position since October of last year, but more notably just being in the throes of planning for this humanitarian crisis as it emerged. And what astounds me more than anything else is how welcoming and supportive Canadians are, how welcoming and supportive Nova Scotians are. And the donation that we see today is extraordinary, not just in the magnitude of its generosity, but in how well it reflects the experience I've had in speaking with Canadians who want to help. One of my predecessors in this position used to joke that he's unique amongst immigration ministers in the developed world, and that his biggest problem was that he can't welcome enough newcomers, can't bring refugees here quickly enough. Similarly, one of the greatest challenges that I face is coordinating the extent of the goodwill that we're seeing coming from the Canadian business community, from different levels of government, and from Canadian households. So what do I feel in response to this generous donation that we've learned about today? Extraordinary gratitude. It has inspired in me a sense of pride, not in my role as Minister of Immigration, but in my role as a Canadian who cares deeply about doing the right thing for vulnerable people. And if I could just reiterate my gratitude to Air Canada and the Shapiro Foundation for this extraordinary gesture today. It represents to me something that is both extraordinary but stereotypically Canadian at the same time, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
We will now go to the phone lines. So if the operator can put the next media on the line, on va maintenant aller aux lignes téléphoniques. Et puis, ce sera la presse canadienne en premier, Émilie Bergeron.
Thank you. Merci. Alors, la première question, the first question is from Émilie Bergeron, la presse canadienne. À vous la parole. Please go ahead.
Ukrainian, the one that you mentioned earlier in your opening remarks that allowed a 3-year stay for Ukrainians, but you also announced that you were going to make a new stream in terms of family reunification. So what's going on that field? Why is it taking so long to announce something on the family reunification front?
Sure. I think the volume cut out at the beginning. I assume that question was for me. So as I understood it, just to make sure I captured the whole thing, is what's the status update on the family reunification piece? So if I fail to answer it, I'll count on you to come back, because I did miss just the first few seconds of your question. So we made a commitment to do a couple of things when we launched this new immigration pathway. One of them was to expedite applications that were already in the queue, which we've been doing to significant success. Thank you very much. The second was to create this new expedited pathway, which has now approved more than 54,000 people. And the third was to launch a new family sponsorship initiative. One of the reasons that it's taking a little bit longer to design the family sponsorship initiative, and we do expect to have more details, I don't have a specific date for you, but probably within a matter of weeks, maybe a little longer, but and I apologize for the ambiguity, but The reason why it takes a little bit longer is our focus right now is to provide a safe haven to people who are seeking refuge, who've fled this war. The people who get here on a temporary basis will still be eligible to apply for this family sponsorship initiative, which would grant them permanent residency. The urgency with which a person needs to become a permanent resident is not quite the same as the urgency with which a person needs to flee a war zone when they may have lost everything and don't have a safe place to rest their head for a night. We're going to continue to engage with the Ukrainian Canadian community to make sure that we design the program with the full benefit of the needs that the community is communicating to us. But we do want to make sure that we maintain the priority response to those who need a safe place now and provide a long-term and permanent opportunity for resettlement once the dust settles on having the program in place that will safely allow people to come to Canada as part of this humanitarian initiative.
Merci.
Okay, and as a follow-up, if I have a follow-up, Minister, I don't know if you can hear me.
I can.
Well, okay, good. You mentioned in your opening remarks that chartered flights are not the only solution in that case, but what is currently being done in regards to chartered flights and in regards to the members of the Canadian Armed Force that were sent in Poland? How are they able now to help refugees, Ukrainian refugees?
So there was a couple different aspects to your question. One was a status update on what's happening with chartered flights. The other is the role of the Canadian Armed Forces personnel who've been deployed to Poland to help facilitate the exit of Ukrainian refugees from Ukraine, ultimately for onward settlement toward Canada. On your first question with respect to chartered flights, we've made the commitment to launch chartered flights, but we need to make sure that we're deploying our resources in the most effective and efficient way. One of the unique nuances that's present in this crisis that is unique compared to other humanitarian crises that we've addressed in recent years is the fact that people have spread out before and after they've been approved to come to Canada under the new Canada-Ukraine authorization for emergency travel. This means that a person who may have fled Ukraine, applied for this expedited travel document in Warsaw, may now find themselves in Paris or Berlin. In fact, some people have made their way to Berlin before applying to come through this program. And Berlin is actually the second busiest visa application center we have when it comes to the applications to take part in this program. That lack of predictability in migration flows means that it's more difficult to arrange for chartered flights to pick people up from a particular location for onward travel to Canada. What we've been doing to help manage that is about a week and a half ago, we launched a survey to solicit information from everyone who's been approved to come to Canada under this new expedited travel document. The survey asked questions about where the people are now, their anticipated travel dates, whether they still intend to come to Canada, and where they want to go. We should have the first tranche of information as a result of that survey any day now. And once we have a better understanding of where people are, when they want to travel, and where they want to go, it will allow us to plan the logistics of charter flights more effectively. Of course, having the benefit of this new program announced today will no doubt change the travel plans for many individuals in terms of whether they would wait for a government charter or take a commercial option, which may be more effective as a solution for certain individuals who may not be in the same location where we see large numbers of people who've been approved to come to Canada. So that was the first aspect of your question on the charters, and now I've forgotten the second half. Looking here, one of my colleagues taking notes for me. Do you mind just repeating the second half of your question? Oh, have we lost our reporter?
I was just wondering. Hi, do you?
Yeah, I hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. So the second part of my question was just with
the armed forces personnel.
Military. With the Canadian Armed Forces members that were sent in Poland, what results did that give so far since they are on the field?
Sure, and sorry for the interruption to my train of thought. So the Canadian Armed Forces personnel are going to play a number of different roles. One of the things that has been unique in our response to this particular initiative is the need to iterate and continue to adjust as we hear about issues on the ground that may have been unanticipated or create an opportunity for us to improve the efficiency of our response. There are people who've fled Ukraine, as you can imagine, who have no idea about what options they have in terms of where they want to go. They also don't necessarily benefit from logistical support in terms of their ability to move from the place where they've exited Ukraine to a Canadian visa application center. Directing people as to where they want to go and the information that they may need to take part in the Canadian program is one feature that the Canadian Armed Forces personnel are going to be able to take on. In addition, we are now planning to establish larger presences and additional presences in Warsaw and Berlin to more effectively process people. We do still hear that some people, for different reasons, have challenges accessing the application process. Now that said, our capacity is in good shape. We have the capacity to process in excess of 19,000 biometrics applications weekly at our locations across Europe, but we do still see that in Warsaw in particular, there's large volumes of people that would benefit from additional people on the ground to help facilitate access to the Canadian program. To the extent that there are other humanitarian or logistical supports they may provide, having a presence on the ground is certainly only going to help things operate more smoothly.
Thank you very much. We will now return to the floor. I believe CBC has a question.
Yeah, hi, Mark Crosby, CBC. The federal budget talks about the need to address chronic labor shortages. But in Canada, there are skilled workers in this country, but they can't get permanent residency. IRCC hasn't held express entry draws for Canadian experience class since last September. For the skilled workers program since 2020, can you give a concrete date as to when draws, which used to happen every 2 weeks, will happen next?
Sure, so it's really important that we understand a little bit of context. I don't have a specific date for you with all the details, but I will be sharing information on this very specific point very, very soon in the next number of days. Just to appreciate this point, there's a unique strategy that the Government of Canada adopted during the pandemic to make sure that our economy still benefited from the strength of our immigration programs at a time when our borders were closed to protect the public against the spread of COVID-19 in our communities. The decision to continue to resettle people who were here on a temporary basis at a time to meet very ambitious immigration targets caused a number of people who were applying through different programs to be on hold. In addition, the processing capacity of the federal government when it came to immigration was impacted by the fact that local offices all over the world were actually closed down as a result of potential exposure to COVID-19. And in many locations, as you can appreciate, the ability to have staff work from home may not have evolved as quickly as it did here in Canada and in other certain parts of the world. There's a unique issue in particular impacting people who hold postgraduate work permits that are typically for a defined period of time. And as a result of their potential expiry of existing work permits, they may find themselves in a position, if no changes are made, where they potentially have to leave Canada and may cease to be eligible for certain programs based on Canadian experience. There's another related but unique issue on the federal skilled workers draw. I'm completely aware of the issue. We do intend to introduce a solution to this in a very short period of time. And with respect, I don't have a concrete date for the actual draws to resume, but within a matter of days, we'll be sharing more information once we have all of the information available for the public who may be impacted by this issue.
Any follow-up question? No. And we are nearing the end of the event. The minister has to go somewhere. Alors, on est rendu à la dernière question de la journée. The last question for the day goes to the phone line. Next, I believe it's Canadian Press, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you. Merci. The next question from the telephone lines is Laura Osmond from the Canadian Press. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Thanks so much. Minister, I'm wondering if you can explain the benefit of flying Ukrainians to Canada through sort of a corporate partnership with Air Canada rather than just giving funds directly to people who've been approved to find their own flights here.
Sure. So one of the things that I think is really important is you're dealing with a group of people who are in really, really challenging personal life circumstances. We want to make sure that the resources that we introduce as a federal government do everything we can to facilitate people's travel to Canada and support them once they get here. Typically speaking, we wouldn't be in the business of extending cash grants to people who are thinking about coming to Canada but haven't made that decision, who ultimately might make a decision to use those funds for another purpose. We want to make sure that we capitalize on the opportunity to use the goodwill we're seeing come from Canada to support people in coming to Canada as part of this response. The Government of Canada, to support people who wish to remain overseas, isn't done in direct cash contributions to individuals who find themselves overseas. It's done through more centrally organized humanitarian efforts, where you can actually have a much bigger impact for every dollar that you spend if you're looking for humanitarian outcomes. With respect to the resettlement piece, we want to make sure the dollars that we invest on resettlement are promoting resettlement in Canada. The extraordinary generosity that we've seen from both Air Canada and the Shapiro Foundation today actually provides one of the most effective and efficient ways for people to possibly travel to Canada. Particularly given the unique facet of this crisis that I described earlier, where people find themselves not just in Warsaw, but also in Vienna, Bratislava, Bucharest, Berlin, you name a European country or city. There is a good chance that a significant number of Ukrainians have arrived fairly recently. By extending this generous goodwill to people who may find themselves near an airport that has access to the global partners who will be eligible to transport Ukrainians, makes this really an effective strategy to move people. And certainly if you're looking for the return on investment for each dollar spent on resettlement, I would be hard pressed to find a more effective or efficient way to help as many people as possible.
Do we have a follow-up question? Est-ce qu'on a une question de suivi?
Yeah, maybe this question is for someone with Air Canada, but I'm wondering if Air Canada is going to be organizing dedicated flights, for example, for Ukrainians coming to Canada, or whether once these funds are available, people will be responsible for booking their own flights through the typical channels.
Good afternoon. So if I understand correctly your question, just on the way it's gonna be implemented, the miles will be managed by Miles for Migrant, who's going to inform the Ukrainian on how to book travel, and we're going to manage the booking process. So I don't know if Diane is on the line, if you can provide more details about that.
Sure, I'm happy to. Oh, go ahead.
Pardon me, please go ahead.
Oh, sure, I'm happy to. So it's Diane Padilla with Miles for Migrants, and we are ready to start accepting Ukrainians who are interested in traveling at our website, milesformigrants.org, and that will be translated into Ukrainian and Russian. And we have protocols in place to support the initiative and assist Ukrainians in need. We will be accepting applications for the flight, and we're prioritizing based on first come, first serve. And the timing is we don't have exact timing yet, as it's still being finalized, but we anticipate commencing the flights as soon as next month.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So
everyone.
much. Are you able to say if those are dedicated flights for Ukrainians, or will they just be typical commercial flights?
The announcement.
Yeah, I can try to answer that.
Oh, go ahead.
It's my understanding that there would be a combination of chartered flights, but also when we are booking flights, it's going to be on commercial flights that are available. Air Canada has, well, David, I'll let you speak to the question about whether there would be unique flights for Ukrainians.
So the announcement of today is really focused on helping Ukrainians to come in commercial scheduled flight. As the Minister mentioned earlier in the press conference, the Government of Canada is still assessing the need to organize charter flight. And at this point, we're going to have discussion with the government when those needs will be established. Merci.
So thank you, everyone. Merci tout le monde. This ends the event unless the minister wants. No, we're good. All right. Have a good day, everyone. Merci. Bonne journée.